Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh History Series Podcast, Episode 1. In this podcast series, we will be exploring the various key episodes and pivotal events from Sikh history, as well as looking at the lives and times of the brave Singhs and Singhaniya who faced great hardships but upheld their faith with firm resolve, ate still, and fought to the last breath and to the last drop of blood in defence of Dharam and righteousness. Sikh men, women and children whom were hunted down and shot on sight, who were crushed to death on large wheels, who were hanged to death, executed by cannon fire and butchered with knives and daggers, many of whom were beaten to death with large heavy clubs, while others were set on fire or drowned. Many who were dragged to death. There were those who were cut limb from limb, others who were burned and buried alive, made to sit in rows and had their throats slit ear to ear, some whose legs and arms were cut off. There were those who had their eyes gouged out, and some who were skinned alive, mothers who had their children butchered and murdered before their eyes, and who themselves gave their lives but never their faith. In this series, we're going to focus on the Misl period of Sikh history, the period after Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj. We're going to look at how the Khalsa remained ever alert and in Jardi Kala in such dark and difficult times. We're going to look at the authentic sources which recorded this history and explore these tales without any censorship. I will simply narrate that which has been written and recorded. Many of the Sakya that we will look at were first recorded in a great text, a great Granth, known as Sri Guru Panth Prakash. And in this podcast we will explore why this Granth was written, by whom, when and why it is of such great importance to the Sikh faith. I was first introduced to this Granth and these Sakya at the age of 12 in the mid to late 90s. While learning Shastra Vidya on a Saturday afternoon, following the training session in the Akhara, which included various conditioning exercises including Danda Betka and Betka, Indian push-ups and squats, various fighting techniques armed and unarmed, various types of martial games including Sonchia, sparring games with strikes and wrestling. Our Ustad after the training session would sit us down and go through some of these great tales of bravery. Little did I know at the time that this would instill in me a great love for the Shaheed Singhs and Singhaniya and this period in Sikh history. Years later, I would travel to India and stay in the Nihang Singh Dals, the encampments of Buddha Dal and Dharna Dal, where I would experience life in the Khalsa Panth firsthand, witnessing the Fauj, the armies of Nihang Singhs living a way of life that has remained more or less unchanged for over 300 years. I will share many of these experiences in later podcasts. However, there was one key moment in the early 2000s when I was living in Dal, which once again attached me to this great Granth Panth Prakash. While camped at the Buddha Dal headquarters at Damdama Sahib Sabogi Talwandi, in the blazing hot Indian summer heat, a number of Singhs took time to rest from the midday sun in a bunga of one of the Nishanchi Singhs, the flag bearers of the Khalsa Panth, Inderjit Singh. Amongst those present at the time in this bunga were Jathedar Baba Bahadur Singh, Jangyara Singh, Ninder Singh, and a few other notable Singhs who served the Dal for many, many years. The Nishanji Singh reached for a pothi which happened to be Panth Prakash, and opening this pothi sahib at random, started reading and doing katha of the Prasang episode it happened to open on. The Prasang was about how Nawab Kapoor Singh Ji got the status of Nawabi, and the Singh at the time went into great depth explaining each and every line in that episode. As I listened to the explanation of the Sakhi, I looked out into the Dal and I could see exactly what was being written about right before my eyes. The exact same Buddha Dal living in the exact same way. Being in the Dal at that time and hearing this Katha, my heart opened up to consume this great history once again. A history that has inspired so many brothers and sisters beyond measure on the path of Sikhi. Ever since that hot summer's day, I have studied and read Sri Guru Panth Prakash daily, and it is a vital part of my life. Then in 2013, Gyani Sher Singh Ji came to England and was staying with us. After the Katha Divans, we would come back home and we would sit up all night going through these Sakya. All the Singhs present often recall and reminisce how we would spend all night with Ganiji listening to these amazing tales of bravery, camaraderie, immense pyar and sacrifices made by the Khalsa Panth's finest warriors. We all owe so much to Sikh history, and it is only right we share it with whomever we can. For the last 5 to 7 years, I've been telling Sakya from Panth Prakash, often on Gurukar stages and lecture theatres at universities as well as children's camps. My aim being only to share our great history so others may fall in love with it as I did. Over the last year or so, I've been requested many times to bring back the Sikh History Series talks and take them to other locations, but due to other commitments and duties, I've been unable to fill this task and this request, and for that I apologise. Recently, a fellow Singh requested I record some of the Sakya in a simple narrative format in order to it be shared with a closed friendship group. Through some discussion, it was decided it would be better to record them and put them online to be shared with the wider Sangat and congregation. Thus, through the Hukam order of my brothers, my fellow Singhs, this podcast was born. The aim? To simply share the great stories of our elders and inspire others to learn about their history. In this podcast, we will go through some select Sakya from Panth Prakash, as well as looking at other areas of Sikh history, whatever is requested by the Sangat and the Forge. I ask for forgiveness in advance for the numerous mistakes I will make. Once again, all I will be doing is translating and retelling these Sakya in a simpler, digestible format in English. May Guru Sahib Ji bless us all and keep us in their charan. Please share this podcast with your friends and family so we can spread the great history of the Khalsa Panth. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.